In the ethereal twilight of Ravenswood, where the hues of sorrow blended seamlessly with the echoes of the arcane, Sarah's life spiraled into a melancholic opera. The radiant sun in her world, Mark, vanished without a trace, casting the town into a chilling stillness. Whispers of the supernatural lingered like a haunting melody, suggesting secrets concealed within the ancient cemetery. Driven by an inconsolable longing, Sarah ventured into the graveyard under the caress of moonlight. A spectral whisper, delicate yet haunting, beckoned her towards a crumbling mausoleum. The stone door, ajar, seemed to extend an invitation into a realm where the cool breath of the afterlife hung heavy. As she crossed the threshold, shadows clung to the cold stone, and a ghostly figure materialized, a silhouette bearing the features of Mark. "Sarah, help me," his voice resonated through the mausoleum, each word a note that played on the strings of her heart. The realization struck her like a symphony of grief. Mark's spirit was ensnared, tethered to the mortal plane by an unseen force, their love now a chain binding him to the shadows. Days melted into nights, and Sarah's world transformed into a surreal dreamscape. Mark's ghost, an apparition of anguish, became a constant companion, a poignant reminder of the tragedy that lingered in the air like a haunting melody. Sleep eluded Sarah, replaced by visions that danced at the fringes of her consciousness, a macabre ballet of the surreal and the nightmarish. Desperation led her to the arcane, seeking solace in the guidance of reluctant mediums and spiritualists who unraveled the threads connecting the living and the spectral. With each ritual, the darkness crept deeper into her soul, entwining her fate with malevolent forces that whispered of unspeakable truths. The townsfolk, sensing the encroaching shadows, distanced themselves from Sarah, who unwittingly became a vessel for the supernatural, a solitary figure navigating the blurred boundaries between realms. The cemetery transformed into her sanctuary, the mausoleum her refuge. As she grappled with the tenebrous forces that bound her to the spectral realm, Mark's ghost, a haunting presence that seemed to feed on her very essence, whispered insidious suggestions into the recesses of her fractured mind. The idea, a sinister seed planted by the ghostly specter, took root, an idea so dark and perverse that it promised release from the torment that had become her only companion. One moonless night, as the town slept beneath the shroud of ignorance, Sarah succumbed to the siren call echoing through the twisted corridors of her mind. In the heart of the graveyard, under the watchful eyes of the silent tombstones, she wielded a blade against herself. The metallic taste of desperation hung in the air as she severed the fraying thread connecting her to the realm of the living. Her lifeblood painted the cold, unyielding ground, and the mausoleum pulsed with an otherworldly energy. Mark's ghost, a fleeting silhouette, materialized one last time, a bittersweet expression etched on his spectral visage. The bond that shackled him to the mortal plane dissipated, and he faded into the shadows, leaving Sarah alone in the suffocating void. But the relief she sought remained elusive, replaced by a ghastly realization that she had become a prisoner of her own demise. The veil between life and death tore asunder, Ravenswood morphing into a purgatorial landscape where the living and the dead coexisted in a grotesque ballet of despair. The once beautiful town became a spectral wasteland, an eternal realm where the echoes of Sarah's demise reverberated through the very fabric of the supernatural. Her consciousness lingered in the void, suspended between existence and oblivion. The whispers of the dead transformed into a cacophony, a symphony of tormented souls that reverberated through the abyss. The mausoleum, now a gateway to the netherworld, closed behind Mark, sealing her fate in the inky darkness. Ravenswood, once a haven, now bore witness to a macabre dance of sorrow, where the living and the dead twirled in a mournful waltz, intertwined in the eternal embrace of a haunted town cloaked in the shadows of despair. Each cobblestone street echoed with the lament of the spectral, and the once thriving heart of Ravenswood became a mausoleum of collective grief, a tragic opera etched into the annals of the supernatural. In the aftermath, Ravenswood lingered in the twilight of sorrow, a spectral wasteland where time itself seemed to unravel. The town's heartbeat had grown faint, replaced by a haunting lullaby that echoed through the abandoned streets, a melody of mourning, a dirge for the living and the departed. Sarah's consciousness, adrift in the void, became a phantom echo intertwined with the tortured souls that wandered the ethereal corridors. The whispers of the dead morphed into a symphony of despair, an endless lament that painted the town with hues of melancholy. The mausoleum, once a mere gateway, now stood as a monument to the unholy matrimony between the living and the spectral. As Ravenswood succumbed to the dance of shadows, the once vibrant cobblestone streets transformed into spectral avenues, where the echoes of Sarah's demise became an indelible stain on the fabric of the supernatural. Every corner bore witness to the macabre ballet, where the living and the dead intertwined in a grotesque waltz, an eternal dance of shadows. The townsfolk, mere spectators to this spectral performance, whispered tales of tragedy and despair that clung to the air like a haunting mist. The boundaries between the realms had shattered, and the veil that once separated life and death fluttered in tatters, as if mourning its own demise. In the heart of Ravenswood, the once thriving heart now a mausoleum of collective grief, Sarah's essence lingered, an ethereal spectre adrift in a sea of shadows. The town's pulse, now a melancholic elegy, echoed through the hollow spaces that had once been filled with life. The spectral waltz continued, an endless procession through the fractured streets. Each cobblestone, once trodden by the living, now bore the weight of 1,000 ephemeral footfalls, the dance of shadows, an eternal testament to the tragic fate that had befallen Ravenswood. In the fading echoes of Ravenswood's once vibrant existence, the spectral matrimony between the living and the dead found its solemn rhythm. The mausoleum, standing sentinel on the outskirts, became a silent witness to the undying grief that permeated the very essence of the town. The whispers of the dead, once poignant and tormented, now melted into a haunting serenade, a requiem for a town that had surrendered to the entwined fate of the living and the departed. The shadows, cast by both the spectral and the corporeal, merged into a dance that transcended the boundaries of time and space. As the eternal twilight descended upon Ravenswood, the town became an epitaph etched on the annals of the supernatural. The spectral waltz, an everlasting ballet of sorrow, continued to echo through the cobblestone streets, a reminder that in the realm where shadows and souls converged, the living and the dead were forever bound in an undying embrace. And so, Ravenswood remained trapped in the delicate balance between existence and oblivion, a town cloaked in the eternal twilight, where the macabre dance of shadows played on, a haunting lullaby that whispered of a love that transcended the boundaries of life and death.